Hi everyone, Chris here, and I'm back looking at a mini PC that looks like possible deja vu, right? Because back in June I reviewed what looks like this model, but this is the updated version now. So the T-Book MN25 was one of my favorites, and still is, because it has excellent fan noise, thermals, and just great value for money what is on offer. Now this updated version has a spec bump, so it's got a new chip in there now. So it is the Ryzen 5 3550H. 4 cores, 8 threads, 3.7 gigahertz maximum turbo, and it has the Vega 8 graphics. So 8 graphic cores, and it does actually do pretty well at a bit of light gaming, as you will see in this in-depth review. The newer model now has a Type-C port on the front that does allow video out as well. So we can run 3 monitors now in total with this particular unit. So that is great. The older model was only 2. It does have a 256 gigabyte NVMe drive in this, which is fast. We have 8 gigabytes of RAM, which is in dual channel, so 2 sticks. We're not missing out on RAM bandwidth. And it does come with Windows 10 Home. And as you see in this in-depth review, that this is now, I believe, my new favorite AMD mini PC for the price. So the mini PC has a lot of packaging around it. This is good to see. I think it's better packaged up than what we had with the MN25 version, which is a lower end version of this one. This, of course, is the upgraded chipset. So right here, we will have our power supply unit, and we should also hopefully have a VESA mount bracket, but no, that's definitely not included because it's not in the box right here. So we have a SATA cable right there, okay, for connecting up a 2.5-inch drive, just like the other version. We have user guide, so that's just basically going over how to get to that drive and a few other things about Windows 10. And our cable, so this is the cable you see normally for power supply units on desktop PCs, so the PSUs, as you can see here with the power supply. And this one is rated to 65 watts. Now I will be monitoring the power output from this, so peak power draw and also idle too with my wall socket power meter. Starting with the back of the mini PC, so exit vent here for the cooling. Now the MN25, the lower powered version, had really good fan noise, very good cooling, and that's why it's one of my favorites. So we've got HDMI 2.0 here, A. We've got our DisplayPort out, which is 1.4A, so both of these support 4K 60 frames per second. 2 USB 3 ports, gigabit LAN, 2 USB 2s, and of course this is our power in. And then on the front of it, 2 audio jacks, power button, status LED right there, another USB 3, and we do have USB 3.1 / DisplayPort out Type-C. So this Type-C port, yes, again, is another 4K 60 frames per second, 60 hertz, should I say. So we can run 3 monitors on this particular mini PC. So right here, there's just an intake vent on the side, and the same with the other side. And the top of it, this is made out of plastic. Now that is for the wireless antenna reception. Now all around the outside, that is made out of an alloy that is metal, which is great. Then on the underside right here, we have actually 2 mounting points for the bracket to mount it to back of a monitor or a TV, but sadly we don't actually have the brace for it or the screws or anything, which is a little disappointing. So to get into the internals, you need to remove the 4 rubber feet right here, just like the previous model. It's exact same housing they've used. So you can see I've just removed them, and it does leave behind a bit of the adhesive there, which is a little messy, but we're not going to see that when we put the rubber caps back on. And it wasn't too hard to pry off the rear cover. So we've got 2 RAM slots already filled, okay? So SODIMM DDR4 spec, and it's 2666 megahertz. So I thought they would have gone with a single stick 8 gigabytes. In fact, this I think is probably actually a little bit better, well, at least for my review. I'm not going to touch it. I'm going to leave it completely stock, and this means we're going to get the maximum memory bandwidth and performance, which later on we do need, especially when it comes to the Vega 8 graphics. It's going to give it quite a bit of a boost. So our NVMe drive here, M.2, this is an unknown brand for me. I've never seen this brand before, AS International, so I'll be benchmarking it. I'll check out the NVMe speeds, just how good is this going to be for 256 gigabyte included drive. Layout looks pretty good. So just under the drive here, the SSD, you will find our tiny little wireless card that we can change as well. And I will just remove that SSD now to see what wireless card they have installed. Now I could do this from Windows, just from the device manager. So they've gone with Realtek here, Oh, and it's a single antenna as well. So I was really hoping they'd gone with, say, the Intel AX200 Wi-Fi 6, much faster than gigabit LAN, and this is only Bluetooth 4.2 as well instead of Bluetooth 5. So definite upgrades there are possible, though. You can install a much better wireless card, which is something, if I was going to be keeping this, I would definitely put the Intel AX200 in here instead of this. And now I will show you quickly where we install that cable, the SATA cable for our SSD. So you simply need to place the cable in this, lift up this little clip here, and you can see it aligns nice and easy, and push this down. Just be a little bit careful with this because those are quite fragile. And then we have the connector, of course, so we simply need to then plug that in, which I will do so here with my 2.5-inch SSD. And your SSD or hard drive, you simply mount it here. Okay, that's where it goes on the bottom part. But they did not include the screws, unfortunately. So the screws that you need here, they're very, very cheap. They're quite easy to get hold of as well. But still, they should have been included in the box. Just like a mounting bracket as well. So we can put this on a monitor or TV. And if you pop off the lid, we can get easy access to the cooler here. So you can see it is rather large. It's a good size. And in my experience with the other models, it has been very efficient and good in getting rid of that heat. So if this builds up with dust, you simply just need to undo those 4 screws, take this off, just pop it off, and then you can get in there and blow all the dust out and give that a good clean. You can see where the wireless antenna is located right here. So if you were going to upgrade the wireless, you're sadly going to have to put another stick-on type antenna, one there, and then wire it just through the side here. So it's not actually hard to do it all, but it would have been really nice if it came with the 2 antennas and even a better wireless card. Okay, so starting out here in the BIOS, I just wanted to point out a couple of things. So if you plan to use this as a server, you need this function under power management. Simply enter this. You'll see that we've got the restore power on loss. So it can detect this. It's either the last state, or you can just manually put it onto power on if you're going to be running this as a server on a switch or something like that. Very handy to have this, and not all actual mini PCs have this, which is a little bit disappointing. So there are a few settings we can tweak, and one of them I will tweak here just for the sake of this review to stop all the silly comments, is I'm going to go into AMD CBS graphics configuration, just going to force the largest amount here, 2 gigabytes, for later on for our gaming, because a lot of people seem to get quite frustrated when I've just left it as default in other videos and say, oh, it's only got 1 gigabyte allocated, it's not going to have the maximum AMD integrated graphics performance for the Vega 8. You get the idea. So I went straight into Windows. There was no setup that I had to go through. It was already done, and with an account called admin. I'm not too happy about that, so I will be factory resetting this one and just start from scratch again. I don't know why this is like this. It's probably the image that they loaded onto it out of the box is why it's doing this. Now, it does seem to have a valid license, okay? So Windows 10 Home, and you will have to run Windows 10 updates and things like that as well. I will be getting the latest Vega graphics as well from AMD.com, from their website, to make sure I'm running just the latest to get the maximum performance. So taking a look at that drive that I showed you before, the internals, so it is an ASINT AS806, and you know, it's not too bad here for the speeds. It is no Samsung 970 Evo, but for NVMe, I mean, it's doing all right. Not too bad at all, as you can see. So that's a lot faster than your typical SATA 3 drive that'll be maxing out at 500 there and about 400. All right, so what can I tell you about the general performance? It is very, very good, okay? So I'm not going to load up spreadsheets and Excel documents on the Gemini Lake, the low-end kind of mini PCs, because here everything is very, very quick. Now, all the benchmarks I'm about to show you I did run by themselves, okay? But also to point out that the real-time audio is looking very good according to latency monitor, latency mon. So fine for that. So if you're going to do some real-time audio work, this particular mini PC should be fine. And it does have the separate independent jacks there as well. Now, I tested out all the USB ports. Display out from the Type-C port as well is working. So that's good. No problems with it there. So Cinebench R23 now, that's the newer updated version from, well, we are still in November. Well, actually, no, December now. Is 3,464 points for multi-core, and single is 784 points. So, I mean, it's an okay kind of score. This mini PC is actually more potent than what the benchmarks suggest when you're actually using it in real life. It seems to be fine. So here's Cinebench R15 as well. So 618 CB, and then 143 CB for single core score there. And the last benchmark here is this one, so a Geekbench 5, and we've got a single core score of 878, and then 3095 for the multi-core score there. So it's fairly decent. It's not super powerful, but as you'll see later on, it's the GPU, mostly because of the Vega 8 GPU integrated graphics that it does actually perform quite well, this mini PC, and a step up from the old model that I looked at that had the Ryzen 5 2500U. This does perform a little better. So 8 GPU cores, as you can see. The maximum turbo is 3.7 gigahertz and those 8 threads that I talked about. So here in the background, I do have Photoshop, sorry, not Photoshop, but Premiere Pro open, just to show you that 4K video editing is possible. And the timeline running at a corner can be sometimes a little bit slow, as you can see, to catch up. So I don't know, video editing, the minor stuff is okay. I just noticed there is definitely a little bit of lag when it comes to 4K performance. As you can see here, see how that still is taking a little while to catch up. So that's where there's a tiny bit of lag there. Now the export times I will check now to just export 1 minute of footage with the 4K YouTube preset. And we'll see how long it is going to take. So there we go, 4K. And I need 1 minute of footage, which I will get approximately 1 minute right here. That's 40 seconds. There we go, 1 minute. Okay, 1 minute and, well, 24 milliseconds right there. And clock, of course, I need right here just to time this. Once I do this, it should be pretty quick now because they have really improved the performance, Adobe, on just how fast it does export. So reset this. I'm going to hit start and export here. About a second delay between that. And this should be quite quick, as you can see. That's powering ahead 10% already. About 1 minute. We'll see how long it takes to finish up. So we have 4 seconds left, and as soon as this whole bar disappears, I shall hit the pause here. Alright, so you could say roughly 1 minute and 5 seconds. That's excellent performance. So it's almost a 1-to-1 ratio. 1 minute of footage is going to take about, just over now, a minute to encode 4K. That's good. So not bad at all. Remember that I'm only running the 8 gigabytes of RAM in this particular model too. So if you were to upgrade it and put 16 in, I think the timeline will be a little bit more fluid. And the Vega 8 here is definitely helping out. So just before I do get on to a little bit of gaming performance to check out that Vega 8, how it's going to handle a few older titles, just to show you that VP9 and HEVC codecs files, videos, demanding files, 140 megabits per second, this one. Absolutely fine. Good, no problem. So as a media playback device for demanding 4K files, including 4K HDR, 60 frames per second, this particular clip, flawless. Very good. Not a problem at all. That's going to be running and does run at 60 frames per second, matching the 60 hertz there. So great. What else is also excellent and really good with this particular mini PC is our wattage, our power consumption. So using my wall meter, not these stats right here, but my wall meter, I'm seeing an idle bouncing around between 8, sometimes 7 to 9 watts idle. That's just with a wireless mouse and keyboard plugged in. So one USB transmitter receiver. That's it. And then the peak power use, I am seeing 42.5 watts from my meter. Here in HW Info, it is reporting a lot less because it's not the total wattage, because when you look at all this, we're looking at 27. So at the socket, 42.5. And thermals, look at this, top temperature, that's it. It is so good. 37.1 degrees Celsius. The fan noise, just like the earlier model, the low end model that I checked out with the 2500U, very good fan noise. You don't really hear it that much at all. It's only when doing something super demanding, it'll make a bit of a humming, whooshing noise, but it's not even annoying. It's such a quiet mini PC. 95% of the time, very good thermals, and the fan noise is just brilliant. Gaming performance for integrated graphics, very good here with that Vega 8. It's performing well, and I've only got the 8 gigabytes of RAM here. So if we had a little bit more RAM, then this might actually be performing slightly better. It's using about 5 gigabytes, and I do have now the 2 gigabytes dedicated to the GPU. But just look how fluid this is. Definite playable frame rate here. Now, I have it on the medium settings. This is 1080p, so I could actually lower settings down even further to get more than the 40 frames per second average that I'm seeing at the moment. Now, if this was the Intel integrated graphics, especially the 10th and even the 9th gen and 8th gen, then we'll be looking here at probably about 25 to 30 frames per second, and this is just so much better. It's not quite double the performance, but it's getting there. It's just more fluid, better frame rate on average, and we're seeing up to about 45 as well now. So let's have a look at one last title, which is Counter-Strike Global Offensive, that I do like to test out on this kind of hardware. So let's see how this performs. Looking good so far, 70 frames per second. You can see it down in the bottom right hand side and also the top right hand side. 80 frames per second now. Teammate flashbanging me, that's always helpful. So let's see how many seconds I last here before dying. I got a teammate jumping right in front of me there. Very good performance though. This is so smooth and playable. Still 70 frames per second even with the smoke there. I do have it on the lowest settings, but it is 1080p. Oh, I've got the bomb, so... Uh-oh. Someone's right there. Ah, and he got me, so I didn't last long. About a minute. Did I even manage to hit him? Nah, I did. One hit. So great performance gaming so far, but let's step it up to something even more demanding, and that is The Witcher 3. So we are looking around 35 frames per second, 720p. This is on the lowest settings. So this is still good to see that it's able to run this game where we're getting this kind of frame rate. You have to remember that this is integrated graphics. This is not a dedicated GPU. And it's really doing fine. So for those of you out there that wanted to play, say, a game like this, something a little more demanding, expect to see these frame dips, but you still have a playable experience, just. I mean, ideally, I'd love to see 60 frames per second solid the whole time at least 1080p. But we have to remember that this is a $300 or so US dollar mini PC, and it's doing really well. So great gaming performance. And take a look at the thermals. 60 degrees. It's such a cool running mini PC. All right, guys, so I think that graphics, the gaming performance is fantastic considering it's integrated. We're looking at the last gen now, AMD chip in here, 3550H. So Linux support, I know a lot of people ask about that, so I'll just quickly briefly let you know that Linux runs absolutely fine, no problems on this. Just get a latest distro out there. I tested Linux Mint, and no issues with this, so that was great to see. So we've got an excellent build, great fan noise, so it's only just a bit of a whooshing noise once you're doing something very, very demanding on it. Most of the time it is quiet, and I couldn't get the thermals over about 75 degrees. Now the wattage, it will pull about 43 watts maximum, and that's actually not too bad at all. And then at idle, it's around 8 to 7 to 9 watts at idle. That was with, as I mentioned, a wireless mouse and keyboard plugged in. So it's not the most power efficient, but overall it's quite good. Now we've got the option 2 in the BIOS that we can have it switch on once it detects power loss as well. So automatically boot. So if you want to use this as a file server, a server, it's going to be good for that. So we have a fast NVMe drive in here as well, which is great. And we've got Windows 10 Home. The key is part of the BIOS. It's incorporated into it, so no problems if you do a clean install, because when I did start this, it just went straight into Windows Admin. I think all of their images they're putting over onto the drive, the NVMe drive in this, are like that. So I do recommend just do a factory reset or a complete new install if you wanted to do so with this mini PC. So we can install a 2.5-inch drive, SSD or hard drive, but they don't give us the screws in the box, and they don't give us the mounting bracket either. So if you wanted the VESA mounting bracket, sadly, we have to hunt around and find one of those for this. Now, great that we can run 3 displays, and overall, it just comes recommended. I think for the price, it may not be super cheap, but I do expect it to be selling for around about $300 US, 300 euros with some coupons and things like that. I think it's great value for money considering all that power, the performance I showed you. You can edit 4K video, maybe not the fastest out there, and then a little bit of gaming on the side. So really it does cover all of the bases. The only thing I don't like is the wireless card. That for me is the only hiccup there, but we can replace it because so many of these mini PCs I review, normally it's soldered onto the motherboard. but we're able to swap the card out. Install an Intel AX200 is highly recommended from me. It's also got Bluetooth 5 and an additional aerial, and you are set. Then you've got a fantastic, great value for money mini PC here, which is decent, very good power, a bit of a powerhouse really for what it is. So thank you so much for watching this mini PC review. I will next year try and review a lot more mini PCs. More of the 4000 series hopefully will be sent out to me that I can cover in the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.